Trump's economy, jobs report fallout, and tariff controversies. Imagine waking up to a world where the economy is on shaky ground and the numbers just don't add up. This is exactly what happened on a fateful Friday when the July jobs report revealed a staggering truth. The labor market had only gained a mere 106,000 jobs over the last 3 months. But here's where it gets controversial. The report from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, BLS, suggested that the economy and labor market are much weaker than previously thought, raising questions about the impact of President Trump's tariff regime on businesses and hiring. The combination of the dismal jobs report and rising inflation also sparked disturbing concerns about whether the economy is heading towards stagflation, a scenario where unemployment rises alongside prices. And this is the part most people miss. The potential consequences of such a scenario could be far-reaching, affecting not just the economy, but also the lives of millions of Americans. The president's response to the report was furious, with him firing BLS Commissioner Erica McIntyre and accusing her, without evidence, of politicizing previous BLS reports. This move has cast doubt on the accuracy of future jobs reports, which are closely watched around the world for signals about the U.S. economy. Markets reacted poorly to the news, with the Dow Jones Industrial Average dropping 542 points and the S&P 500 losing 1.6% of its value. The tech-heavy Nasdaq Composite fell 2.3%, marking its worst day since May. But what does this mean for the average American? The economy added 73,000 jobs in July, well below economists' expectations of around 100,000. More significantly, the massive downward revisions over the past 2 months revealed that the economy added just 14,000 jobs in June and 19,000 jobs in May, a far cry from the initially reported numbers. The Labor Department described these revisions as abnormally large, citing new information and employment levels in the state and local government education sectors. Trump's response to fire the head of BLS raised major red flags from economists, with Harvard economist Jason Furman stating that reliable economic data is a key strength of the U.S. economy, and that Trump's actions could compromise this. The White House economists admitted that the numbers were bad, but pointed to anomalous factors related to seasonal adjustments. However, Harvard economist Jeffrey Frankel noted that the previously reported jobs numbers stood out to him more than the revised numbers, which he said make more sense in the context of tariffs and a broader slowdown. Market participants expressed similar sentiments, with Zacks Investment Research senior market analyst Mark Vicker stating that the labor market is looking much weaker than we knew yesterday. The White House has been leaning on Trump's tariff plan as a policy that will turn around the U.S. economy and create revenue and jobs for the country. However, skeptics of the president's tariff plan have predicted that this year will be one of pain for the U.S. consumer, with companies passing off the cost of high tariffs to customers. Douglas Holtz-Eakin, president of the center-right American Action Forum, noted that the plan is a recipe for slower economic growth and higher prices. The jobs report on Friday showed the manufacturing sector lost 11,000 jobs in July, contradicting the White House's messaging that more goods can be made in the U.S. Monica Gorman, former special assistant to President Biden for manufacturing and industrial policy, stated that we're certainly not seeing a manufacturing renaissance. At this point, the data is showing the opposite. Trump also lashed out at Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell, urging the central bank board to wrest control from him. This move could dramatically shake markets, and many forecasters predict that the Fed will move to cut rates sooner given the newly apparent weakness in the job market. The economy is in the middle of a gradual slowdown, and the Friday jobs report suggests that the moderation in conditions could be further along than previously known. Gross domestic product grew by 2.9% in 2023 and by 2.5% in the first half of last year. But it grew by just 1.2% in the first half of this year. Prices are also starting to rise from tariffs, creating potential stagflation. Businesses are sounding increasingly worried about normalizing the new U.S. tariff levels, with the National Foreign Trade Council stating that institutionalizing the highest U.S. duties since the Great Depression, coupled with ongoing uncertainty, will ultimately make American businesses less competitive globally and consumers worse off. So, what do you think? Is the economy heading towards stagflation, and is President Trump's tariff plan to blame? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Recession alert! Jobs report reveals AI's impact on employment. Imagine waking up to a jobs report that sends shockwaves through Wall Street, signaling a potential recession and hinting at a troubling trend. AI might be contributing to rising unemployment. This is exactly what happened on Friday, according to J.P. Morgan's analysis. The jobs report for July revealed a significant slowdown in hiring, with payrolls growing by a mere 73,000 jobs, far below the anticipated 100,000. But here's where it gets controversial. The revisions to previous month's data were even more alarming. May's job gains were slashed from 144,000 to 19,000, and June's from 147,000 to 14,000. This means the average monthly job growth over the past 3 months is now a paltry 35,000. And this is the part most people miss. While these numbers might suggest mass layoffs, other indicators like weekly jobless claims and monthly job turnover surveys tell a different story. Wages and work weeks are still on the rise, which is a positive sign. However, J.P. Morgan economists warn that the comfort from these numbers is overshadowed by a sharp hiring slowdown, which they describe as a stall speed alert. The private sector, in particular, has seen hiring slow to an average of just 52,000 jobs over the last 3 months, with sectors outside health and education showing little to no growth. This lack of demand for labor, coupled with no signs of increased separations due to immigration policy, is a strong indicator that business demand for labor has cooled. J.P. Morgan economists emphasize that such a significant slide in labor demand is a clear recession warning signal. Typically, firms maintain hiring gains during temporary growth downshifts, but when labor demand slides alongside a growth downshift, it often precedes retrenchment. Despite these warnings, the overall economic numbers still show expansion, albeit at a slower pace. The GDP rebounded more robustly than expected in the second quarter, hitting 3%, though a metric focusing on final domestic demand indicated slowing. The Atlanta Fed's GDP tracker points to growth decelerating to 2.1% for the third quarter. J.P. Morgan also cautions that the depressed pace of job growth is unlikely to sustain income gains or consumer confidence, which has recently bounced back. Meanwhile, the broader U6 gauge of unemployment, which includes those who haven't looked for work recently but are still interested in finding a job, as well as those working part-time involuntarily, has climbed by 0.4 percentage points this year. In contrast, the headline unemployment rate has remained relatively stable, fluctuating between 4% and 4.2% for over a year. Until Friday's report, this stability had given the impression that the job market was resilient, despite steep tariff hikes from President Donald Trump. J.P. Morgan suggests that job creation is no longer solid, and combined with the drags from the trade war, supports their view that the Fed is moving closer to easing. But here's another twist. A separate note from J.P. Morgan highlights details in the jobs report suggesting AI is impacting the labor market. For instance, payrolls at professional and business services firms have been trending lower, falling by 14,000 last month. Additionally, the unemployment rate for college-educated workers rose to 2.7% from 2.5%, while the overall unemployment rate ticked up to 4.2% from 4.1%. J.P. Morgan notes that new entrants accounted for an unusually large share of the increase in the unemployed last month, following earlier concerns about AI reducing the need for entry-level jobs, a critical stepping stone for recent college graduates. But top economist Brad DeLong argues in a recent essay that the challenges facing young job seekers today are primarily due to widespread policy uncertainty and a sluggish economy, not the rapid rise of AI tools. Uncertainty causes companies to delay major decisions, including hiring, in the face of an unpredictable policy environment, which has been whipsawed by Trump's on-again, off-again trade war. This risk aversion is particularly damaging for those at the start of their careers, who rely on a steady flow of entry-level openings to get a foot in the door. So what do you think? Is AI really the culprit behind rising unemployment, or is it something else entirely? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below.